Alright guys, this is a 2006 Hyundai Tucson 2.7 liters. So they got a couple O2 sensor codes, so this is my first time really getting into the VCI-2 GDS. So we're going to start off with a fault code search. And all the modules are already selected. Just going to hit OK. We've already identified the vehicle with an auto VIN. Pretty noisy right now inside the shop. I'm outside. Kind of tempting to roll up the windows, but it's so damn hot. Maybe that's better. So the full system scan on this doesn't take too long. Looks like we have about 8 modules here. Engine, we already have 2 DTCs. I already know what they are. 0052 O2 sensor heater circuit, control high. So possibilities of this is an open circuit or short to voltage. And we have a P0150 O2 sensor circuit, bank 2 sensor 1. I believe the description on that is high voltage. So before we get into our data display, okay, so we have 2 codes there. Yeah, before we get into data, I'm going to show you. Have to check for a TSB. Now I already know there is a TSB on this. Fastest way possible. Yeah, we put in our fault code P0150, and we have this TSB, which I do not think it's related. So, alright, I think this TSB. Alright, so the only way we know if this applies is if we go into the ROM ID and check our ECM pin, part number first, and look at the ROM ID. We're not going to do that. We're going to just maybe get to that later. So, if I can move this page over, we're going to go to data analysis. Engine. Pretty cool scan tool. Definitely got to get the hang of it. Okay. Nice long list, right? This is what is it, 06? Yeah. Really not that long, I guess, but we're gonna just hit graph right away. Okay, so we're gonna do a custom selection here. And I'm gonna look at the O2 sensors, all 4, because we have 2 banks. This is gonna be our O2 oxygen sensor. That should be our signal. O2 sensor, and we look at our heater circuit here. I don't know if there's anything else I want to look at. We have 8 PIDs already. We'll keep it at that. So sample rate is going to be reduced with the list of items increased. We know that already. Okay, so we have our 4 signals for each O2 sensor on top, and then at the bottom we have our O2 sensor heater control, which is going to be a duty cycle. The first thing I want to point out is all the O2 sensors have 424 millivolts, and if I remember correctly, Hyundai has a 0.5 volt bias. So once this heater activates, this bias voltage should change and start to switch. So we are going to, I want to refresh these PIDs before we start the car, so I'm going to hit stop, hit start again, start the vehicle. And let's see what happens here. So right near the bottom we can already see our bank 1 sensor 1 and bank 2 sensor 1 heater has increased above our 98-99% duty cycle. And the bank 1 sensor 1 already has increased up to 900 millivolts. So it increased. Let's see if it starts to switch, because there it goes, it's starting to switch, but our bank 2 sensor 1 is staying at our bias voltage, staying at our 424 volt bias voltage. Bank 2 sensor 1 is on the 3rd PID from the top. That's flatlined. That should be switching, just like the very top PID of bank 1 sensor 1. we could see our O2 sensor heater. Bank 2 sensor 1, bank 1 sensor 1. And the heater duty cycle is pretty much staying the same between those two banks. The bank 2 is at 70%, the bank 1 is at 57%. Let's see, bank 1 sensor 2 and our downstreams. The heaters are not, we don't see a duty cycle for that. I'm not too concerned with that. We don't have any codes for it. I'm not sure if that's normal or not. We're not going to focus on that right now. Okay, so I'm going to just hit stop and tell you what I think. So there is a TSB for the P0151 circuit code, which is going to be our signal. But I wouldn't attack that. I wouldn't recommend we start with a update, because if the heater circuit's not working, this bias voltage is not going to change. Unless, of course, we go to drive this vehicle and O2 sensor gets hot just naturally with the engine running. But I think there's a problem with the heater circuit. So we are going to attack the heater circuit first. They already replaced the cats on this. They replaced the O2 sensor. I'm going to check it out and see what the hell we find. I'll be back. Okay guys, what a total waste of time. I completely got mind fucked a second ago here. It looks like they had bank 1 sensor, bank 2 sensor 1 and bank 2 sensor 2. They had the connector switched. I thought the wiring diagram was wrong at first. I'm using a factory diagram, a diagram identifix. Let's go back to our data now. Engine control. We're just going to clear these fault codes first before we look at our data. Now, in the process of me ohming out both of these O2 sensors, I did find the downstream O2 sensor. The heater circuit was open. We should have had about 4 ohms of resistance on it. We had nothing. So what we're going to be looking for is a switch now in the upstream on bank 2. That should work. I did load test both of the circuits before, trying to find out what circuit was what using continuity. That really screwed me up, but that's the shit that happens. O2 sensor heater duty. Okay, we are, where is O2 sensor? Okay, let's show it. Let's start this up. Bank 2 sensor 1, heaters are working. Bank 2 sensor 2, oh, what are we looking for? Okay, so our bank 2 sensor 1 is our suspect. Beautiful, now our bank 2 sensor 1 is going down to 117, 20 millivolts. There goes, there's the rise we're looking for right now. Beautiful. Okay, so, I mean, lesson learned, but whatever. You can't just trust someone's connections. Thanks. So really fast now, they did replace this. We do have some activity in our bank 2 sensor 1. You can see it's switching a little bit faster than the OE sensor, which is bank 1 sensor 1. I don't know if this is going to throw a fault code. We will have to see. But for now, I am going to recommend they do a bank 2 sensor because that sensor was open. They're going to be throwing a fault code for that probably pretty soon, because I imagine the resistance on the downstream is the same as the upstream. But I'll probably have to run the car for a little bit and see if we get activity to come into that downstream and just see what it's doing. I'll be back. Alright guys, so I'm back inside the laboratory now. So this is going to be the waveform of the upstream O2 sensor for bank 1 and bank 2. I'm just going to go over this with you real fast. Pretty important information here. So our red trace is going to be our bank 1 upstream. Our green trace is going to be the current for it. Our blue trace is going to be the bank 2 upstream. But in fact, the bank 2 had the connector switch with the upstream and downstream. So what you're looking at right now is actually the downstream for bank 2. But first we're going to go over to our bank 1, which is our red trace, and this is going to be duty cycle. So this PCM is going to actually pull the source voltage down, which is our red trace, and every time it does that, we're going to see our current rise here. Now on average for the bank 1, which is a known good side, we could see just under 1 amp of current. There were no fault codes for it, so I'd have to say that's okay. Now the blue trace here, this is going to be the important side. We can see our source voltage is at 4.2 volts. Now the reason why we're seeing 4.2 volts is this is not getting pulled up to the source voltage because that downstream O2 sensor, the heater circuit portion of it was open. So what you're seeing right here is you're looking at the bias voltage that gets sent out from the PCM on this heater control circuit. Okay, and for some reason it's still going to actually switch and try and pull that sensor to ground, which I guess is normal, but we just don't ever see it go above 4.2 volts. What's good to know about this circuit is it has roughly 4.2 volts is what we're seeing here as a bias voltage that gets sent out on the heater circuit. This is pretty cool. We do know that the signal circuit for these O2 sensors has about roughly the same bias, actually, right around 4.3. I have 4.5 in my notes, but yeah, we got a bias voltage on our heater and our signal. So like I was showing you before, I switched these connectors around. The upstream started to switch. I recommended that downstream O2 sensor because the heater circuit was open, and I just left it at that. We'll see what happens. Yeah, thanks for watching.